Hello, my dear friends. My name is Rabbi Zevi Weinberg. I am the host of KabbalahWisdom.org, author of over 40 books on Judaism and Jewish mysticism. Today, this morning, in our beautiful synagogue, Tzemach Tzedek, right here in the holy city of Safed, Israel, most of life basically is self-growth. It's fact, it says that God, we all know there were great prophets and we live by their words, but 80% of what was told to them actually wasn't revealed. It was about their self-growth. The Holy Baal Shem Tov says that all of life is God communicating growth messages to you. So the following was what happened to me today. It really helped me out tremendously, and I'm really happy to share it with you. So I decided that the way to really help myself is to look at what's called the spheros. We're all made up. We all have a soul. The soul is an essential part of God. It's like a flame, a candle that came from another candle. And of course, the soul has what's called keter, its crown, its core, and then it has what's called koichos, abilities. There are 3 intellectual abilities and 7 emotional abilities. And if we go through this process, we can see where am I in this process, and then we can fix it one by one. So stick with me, and I really encourage you, if this resonates with you, if you feel that there has been some kind of growth in you, please do me a favor. Don't keep the secret. It's been given to us free of charge. Share it with someone else free of charge. You never know. Self-growth and self-love can literally save people's lives. So let's begin. The very first thing is to know, who are we? And in fact, it's kind of an Easter meditation, but it's pretty true, so I'll speak about it. And the concept is, you ask yourself, who am I? And if you just keep on asking yourself a couple of times, who am I? You're going to realize, I am my soul, which is God. Right? That is number one. I am my soul, which is God. Now, once you know that, you have to understand a little bit about the structure of the soul, the keter. The keter is what we call tainug and ratzon. It has 2 parts to it. Its inner part is pleasure. When you have self-love, then you wish. The word in Hebrew for love is ahava. Ahava has in it the word hav, give. You wish to give to whom you love. So listen very carefully to this. When you love yourself, you wish to give yourself pleasure. That's why, in fact, a person who's depressed, who ceases to love themselves, in Hasidic terminology, unfortunately hates themselves for whatever reason, they cease to wish to give to themselves. The classic symptoms of depression is lack of appetite, lack of sexual desires. In other words, what happens is, beforehand, I got hungry, and because I love myself, I want to feed myself. If my child gets hungry, boom, I'm there. How can I help you? Why? Because I love her or him. And the same thing is, there has to be this self-love. We all know quite correctly Maslow's hierarchy of needs. As he said, Freud and other psychologists, they studied sick people. He says, you want to learn how to get sick, study sick people. But you want to learn how to be healthy and successful, study successful people. And really, he had a very beautiful hierarchy of needs. I really encourage you to check it out. So obviously we have to number one, safety, not to be in panic and fear. But part of the upper needs are belonging, love, but there's also one that's not completely spoken about, but it should be, which is self-esteem. We have to love ourselves. We have to respect ourselves. And the only way we can respect ourselves, people do so much today to get a degree, to have money, all of it is based on one thing. It's based on a false perception that there's something wrong with me. There was a psychologist that said, I studied myself my whole life, and I realized that my only problem is that I think I have a problem. Let me say that again. I studied myself my whole life, and I realized my only problem is I think I have a problem. You have people that act a little funny, but they don't think they're funny. They think they're cool. They don't have any problems. All of our problems are because somebody shamed us, and instead of realizing that the person that shamed us was suffering from shame. I like to say shame is the greatest virus that ever existed. It's worse than corona. Why? Because whoever catches it becomes jealous of the person that doesn't have it. A healthy person doesn't feel shame. Doesn't mean they can't feel ashamed of themselves, but at the core of themselves, they feel good. They feel good about themselves. They love themselves. And if you don't have that self-love, then what ends up happening In fact, we're in Israel, and we're surrounded by many Arabs, and many of them are obviously very good people, but many of them have, just talking within their own communities, tremendous violence and disasters. And the reason is because they're suffering from shame. In fact, I realized this, and I did a video with this guy. He was a former terrorist, and he actually converted to Christianity, thank God, and became a lover of the Jews. And because they have this shame, I said to him in this video, I said, I just want to apologize if we ever did anything wrong, going all the way back in history. And the guy said, yeah, I want to apologize if we did. And the bottom line is, he told me after he saw this video, he said he cried when he was watching the own video. And it was like, the truth is, I didn't feel we did anything wrong, but I understood their problem. They suffer from shame, and having suffered from shame myself, I understand it is a problem. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. That's how bad it is. So many of us are suffering that at the very core of who we think we are shameful. And that is because somebody else was suffering and made us feel ashamed of ourselves. Now, is God shameful, the creator of the heaven and earth? He's not shameful. He's beautiful. Look at all the beauty around. Everything comes from him, and it's all goodness of his heart. He doesn't have to make us any moment. We're just like in a video screen. Every moment he's willing us into existence. Why? Because of love. That's beautiful. So that is your core too. It says that Isaac looked like Abraham, that he literally looked like him, but the Baal Shem Tov goes deeper. It says the Jewish people, they look like their father. What are the signs of the Jews? That they're compassionate. You look at just around the world, the amount of the per capita Jews give extraordinarily more charity than anyone else in the world. And that's because they have good hearts. A lot of it's to Gentiles, because they have this sense of God within them, the compassion within us. And that's really our true self. Even children by nature are compassionate. I remember seeing this meme once. How old were you when your compassion died? Because what happens is people become jealous of your compassion. They bully you. And then you're like, oh my gosh, people are mean. And then you create this tough guy or tough gal attitude. But meanwhile, your own heart is beautiful. And that's what we have to realize, that we are beautiful people. So once you understand that and you have the self-love, the healthy self seeks things that feel good, and that is normal. Now, the next level is desire, right? The healthy self should have a desire to accomplish your will. And conversely, it's also discussed a desire to not feel pain. Because again, if you love yourself, you want things that feel good and you don't want things that feel bad. Okay, that is the core, which is very important. If you, by any chance, don't want pleasure for yourself, even if you're kind of functioning in this society, there's something unhealthy about you, because you should want pleasure. I'm not saying you should always be after pleasure, but I'm saying biologically you are hardwired to desire pleasure. If you don't care if you are feeling pain or shame, that also means there's something wrong with you, because biologically you're meant to not want those emotions or those sensations. And so it could be the core of you feels shame, and therefore you don't, like people sometimes are functioning, they're basically masked depression. They're actually depressed, but their depression doesn't come from self-shame, it comes from other people's shame. So therefore they're also protecting themselves by pretending to be okay, but actually they are just creating an actor in society because they're afraid. They're not acting from a sense of safety and love, they're acting from a sense of fear and protection. So the very first thing that we have to do, and that's why I wrote my book, Kabbalah Love. You're welcome to go to KabbalahLove.org. I'll put a little link there. How do you get out of fear and into love? The Baal Shem Tov, in fact, the greatest mystic he said that fear no one or anything but God. Right now, do this little meditation with me. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say, I fear no one or anything but God. Once more. I fear no one or anything but God. Let's do that once more. I fear no one or anything but God. Now, once you do that, you'll be free of 90% of your problems, because most of our problems, like we said before, is this fear of shame. Okay, let's continue. So then in the soul powers, we have what's called Chachma. Chachma is our innovative part. What are the ideas that you hold? I remember my father-in-law, who's a great rabbi, he wrote over 30 books. He once said to me, Zevi, you have to know yourself. And I went for a year asking myself, what do I believe? What do I think? In other words, you have to know what are the ideas that you hold. Now, if those ideas are false, you have to discard them. You have to challenge. I know a great genius, a friend of mine, Yossi Beneshevis, he says, everything I know is because I ask myself one question. He says, what are the facts? Many people, most people, 99.9% of people perhaps are holding false ideas. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but there's about 2 billion Christians, let's say 1.8 million Muslims. They're holding different ideas. Well, that's about 2 billion people in either direction that have got it wrong. You have to ask yourself, what are the facts? Can I look at this independent of what has been told to me and say to myself, what are the ideas? So you have to check your ideas, make sure your ideas are true. And then the next level is called Bina, understanding. Do you get the ramification of that idea? Okay, let's say I decide that this world has a God and he gave us the Torah, he gave us instructions. Okay, that's an idea. What are the ramifications of the idea? Well, the ramifications are I got to learn those instructions and do them. Okay, then the next level is called Das, integration. If I have an idea and I understand the ramifications of the idea, but I'm not committed to doing it, it still remains just an idea. For example, myself, I'm sure billions of people, we know we have to eat healthy. So I'm not too bad, but really there's no reason I should ever have sugar. I'll be honest, I break the rules once in a while. Why? Because my integration is faulty. I haven't fully integrated. A friend of mine, a doctor, Oliver Shalom, he said that he was actually a radiologist, and he would take x-rays in time when people were smoking, and basically he would say, I don't know, I'm sorry, sir, you got 6 months to live. Doctor, no more cigarettes. Now, yesterday the guy didn't know he shouldn't have cigarettes. The answer is yesterday he didn't care. Today he cares. So we only do things, we only change when we care. When does the addict, people can do anything that they desire. When do addicts get off addiction? When the pain, usually the shame of it, they suddenly wake up and they're eating out of a garbage can and they're like, what have I done? Where am I? And they want to change. So it's the desire to change that matters. So you have to understand, this is very, very important what I'm telling you. You can do anything in the world as long as you want to do it more than you don't. And that is that's maturity. Maturity is when the mind is able to tell the heart what to do. Immaturity is when the heart is telling the mind what to think about. Maturity is when the mind is telling the heart what to do. Okay, next level, let's get into the heart. There are two major emotions of the heart. We could speak for thousands of hours about this, but I'm just going to boil it down to two simple emotions. One is called love, the other is called fear. And love is that I love people. I have to get to the place of unconditional love. And unconditional love means that we're all the same. We're all creations of God. Myself, you, we're no different. We all function the same way. We have to get into love. And love already creates, like we said before, chesed, giving. If I love someone, I give to them. The next is actually gevura. It's the opposite of love. And fear is one way of saying it, but another way of saying it is boundaries, right? Just to love without boundaries is not healthy. And I think a really good story is when the previous Rebbe became when he became 13, his father, who was the Rebbe at the time, very great master and genius, told him three things. He says, don't fool anyone, don't be fooled by anyone, and don't be a fool. Again, don't fool anyone, don't be fooled by anyone, and don't be a fool. In other words, we have to have a sense of discernment. Not everybody that's coming to you and saying invest in my company should you invest in. In fact, 99% of the time, you shouldn't invest in that company. But it doesn't mean you can't be kind to them. The difference between a healthy, mature person and an unhealthy, immature person is the immature person is in one of two opposites. Either they're in a state of love, they're open to everyone, they trust everyone, everything is beautiful and loving, let's open up our borders because everybody is beautiful except for us, or they basically hate everyone, which is kind of what we're seeing in Islamic terrorism. They just want to wipe everybody out. They're crazy. But it's very real. Just like there's a connection of love to people, hence you want to give, there's a connection of hate. We have to be the best. You're standing in our way. We want to kill you. And trust me, it's a lot more common than you think. And so both of those are immature. The mature person seeks What is the purpose and meaning of life? I have a responsibility towards myself, towards society, and most importantly, towards my Creator. And therefore, I do good. Why? Because it is my responsibility to do good. I do good because I am commanded to do good, not because I am in love with you, but God commands me to love you. You see the difference? If I am in love with you today, I hate you tomorrow. That's what happens in marriages, and people that loved each other, then they kill each other in court. That's not okay. I am a Jew or a Gentile. I have a command from God to be good. What does good mean? Sometimes good means not to help you. Let's say an addict wants money. Don't give him the money. You can kill him. Now, if you're just giving the money because you don't have courage, you don't have strength, then you have a problem. So the healthy person has what's called tiferes. It's a balance between sometimes I'm kind, sometimes I'm tough. Now, being tough doesn't mean you're not being kind. It means you're being kind by being tough. The unhealthy person can't be tough or is only tough. It's one of two ways. So obviously we're all kind of a mix. None of us will ever get this right perfectly because it's complicated. It's like the plethora of colors. Black and white or red and blue are easy, but infinite colors are not so simple. But we live in infinite colors. We don't live in black and white. And so therefore we have to be discerning and try our best without being a fool and discerning at the same time. The next level is called nitzachon. Nitzachon is very important. You need to wish to succeed. If you don't wish to succeed, you won't succeed. If you have a goal, you have an agenda, in Maslow's hierarchy, the second to highest level, because later in his life he added another level of spirituality, is called self-actualization. He speaks about people that are successful. They don't rely on others to actualize themselves. They actualize themselves. I have a goal. I'm going to go get the goal. Today we're in Yom Ha'atzmaut in Israel. So notwithstanding everybody's different opinions, but the fact is there's an interesting story here that there was a Jew who was completely secular. And he had a goal to protect the Jewish people. He said, we can't have random anti-Semitic acts happening. We need a state. And this one guy, he gave up his job. And he said, if, he said in 50 years this will happen. Why? Because he created the infrastructure. A person that's going to achieve anything in life has to work hard. There's no such thing. One of the big mistakes of the West is we're entitled, spoiled babies. We want everything to come our way. You know what? It doesn't matter, but a black comedian, he said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And it's amazing how many people don't get that. Why didn't God give us free lunches? The birds get free lunches. Everybody gets a free lunch, but the humans, why? Because free lunches don't taste good. When you just get a handout, it doesn't taste good. People are on welfare. They don't feel good about themselves. People that go to work and earn money, they feel good. It says that a person would rather have $100,000 that they earn than $900,000 that they didn't earn. And it's true, because that $100,000, you can feel good about it. The $900,000, you're still a beggar. You still didn't earn it. So, nitzachon, figure out your goals, as I did with my good friend David Pack. Make a bullseye, right in the center. What is my main goal? Around it, till you have no more goals. Every day, read that, and 15 times a day, say, I will do this goal with God's help. I will do this goal with God's help. Actually 15 times, in the morning, say it 15 times. And what that's going to do is will focus you on the goal. And where did I get this from? Scott Adams, who was the founder of Dilbert Cartoons. He was a little, cubicle employee, and he wrote 15 times a day, I will become a syndicated cartoonist. And he did. You know why? Because he focused on the goal. He made it happen. And so again, it's very important that your goals are aligned to the truth, to God, to Torah. If you want, check out Kabbalah on Money. I have a nice thing, how to have positive wealth. But in any event, I am telling you something important, which is the focus. Now, the contrast to the focus is some people, I'm going to go on my goal and I don't care about anyone else. I was actually overhearing have a joint office like a WeWork, and one of the guys is a coach, and he's got long story short, he was coaching somebody, and the guy with the other side of the phone was a little narcissistic. I don't care what anyone says, I'll just go. And he says, how would you feel if someone did that to you, right? So that's the basis of Judaism. How would you feel if someone did that to you? So you can go forward, and the most successful people are like this. They go forward with compassion, with sensitivity. If you're just going forward like an animal stomping around, then you're an animal. But if you go forward and you're thinking about the other, how can I help the other? I don't want to hurt the other. You're entitled to get your way, but not to step on someone else, not to hurt someone else, right? So to do it, in fact, in Judaism, there's a mitzvah called leisai. You're not allowed to take another person. Somebody has a shoe store on the street, you can't open a shoe store on the street, because that's taking away his business. You can open it up somewhere else, but don't take away his business. Be sensitive to others. And this mentality that we have, running after money, and it doesn't matter what you do, or running after whatever, a woman, it doesn't matter who you hurt. No, that's wrong. It does matter who you hurt. God does care about who you hurt. He wants you to be successful with respect, with compassion. And that's what we call Yesod, the balance of the two. Go after your dreams, but do it respectfully. Do it nicely. Okay, the last is called Malchus. Malchus is sovereignty. And Malchus is very, very interesting because it combines two opposites. On one hand, you are a king. Who is a king? A king is a melech. A melech is the person that the mind and the soul rule the body. Your body is the functionality of yourself. Ezel Giber who is really strong, not a guy that could beat someone else in an arm wrestle. A friend of mine, Jerry, unfortunately passed away. He once had a company, and they were, his olden days, they were like basically bricklayers. So one of his workers says, Jerry, I'll bet you $1. In those days, $1 was a lot of money, that I could carry more bricks down the road than you. And Jerry gave him $1. He said, you won. In other words, the bottom line of life is you don't have to be the big shot. And the big shot is the person that can control themselves. Okay, I'll reveal something. It's not the nicest thing that I have to reveal here, but I have a problem. I don't get in bed. I'd like to get out of bed very early, and I don't. I usually sleep in a little bit. So that's a problem, because that means I don't have full control over myself. We all have aspects of our lives that we don't have control. And what is stopping me? Perhaps it's integration. Perhaps I have to desire it more. Could be that's what it is. But the point is that we have to get to the point where we have self-discipline, right? Now that is called a melech. But the flip side, and this is very, very important, because there's a part of us, an ego part of us, what we call the Yetzer Hara, kind of an insanity part. And in fact, there was a debate between a rabbi, one of our greatest rabbis, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, and the Roman emperor. I think he was Marcus Aurelius. Or in Hebrew he's called Antoninus. They used to discuss a lot. He had a lot of respect for the rabbi. In fact, there was a tunnel in his house in Caesarea, which is not too far from here. They would go and he would study with the rabbi. So the question was, when does, if you want to call it the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the dark side, come into, they say the Satan's like a little fly between the heart. He doesn't want me to teach you this, so listen carefully. When does he come into the person? Is it at conception or is it at birth? So the rabbi, this great rabbi, said it's at birth. And the great rabbi said it's at conception. The Roman emperor said, no, it's at birth. So the rabbi said, why do you think it's at birth? He says, because if that was the case, if this like little devil was in us, at conception we would claw a way out of our mother's stomach. But the rabbi said, if that's the case, the child would die. So the emperor, because he was a Roman and he understood a little bit more about the dark side, he says, yeah, but even so. So we have to understand there's evil within us. It's not us, but it's the Satan, and he wants us to be cruel. He wants us not to do what's right. So just like there is this kingship within us, the only way you can be a king is by being a servant. There was this lady, a very interesting woman, but she told me that there was a Roman emperor who said of his son, who later became an emperor, he will become a great leader because he is a great follower. The only way we can have sovereignty and kingship is if we can literally be humble to the real king. Because Margaret Thatcher said this. She said that, listen very carefully, a person without religion is a slave to their passions. We see the debased and the licentiousness, the literally animals wouldn't behave the way humans, I don't want to label, but the radical left has become, like all times in human history when there's prosperity and there's freedom, there's a group of people that just their sexual drive take over them, and they don't only want sexual crazy things, they also want anarchy. It says this in Judaism, that what is the sign of health? It's that there's good respect between men and women. You get married and you respect your wife and you take care of her. And conversely, what is the also sorry, not conversely, but also there is respect for law. There's order. We have to respect each other. What's the sign of evil? It's disrespect. I'm just going to do whatever I want. It doesn't matter, right? So this is the opposite of good. And that little guy is within you. Trust me, it's there. And so therefore you have to overcome it. And the only way to overcome it is through Malchus. You want to be a king? You have to be a servant of God. There's no other way. And you have to go back to that first principle is I fear no one but God. Because accepting God as our king makes us normal. I met this lady, she was over 104, in an old age home. And I asked her, I like asking very old people for advice. They've been through life. I said to her, she was like, her mind was perfect. I said, can you give me some advice? She said, be normal. Be normal. Well, great advice, because so much of the world is crazy. And I'll just conclude, why is the world crazy? Because we're about to have the infinite glory of God come to the world. And it's going to be so beautiful and so amazing. But it used to be that the world was like a train going between two cities. Okay, you go north or south, a little more religious, a little less. But society had a very big hold on humanity. But now, in fact, to our interest, God has taken off those strictures. Why? Because he wants you to rise to your exaltedness. He wants you to become the best you can be, and you can only do that through free choice. So be a king, be a servant, go through your essence, the pleasure, the desire, the care about pain, the what are my ideas, the understanding of them, the ramifications, the integration of them. I desire this. I will be kind. I won't be a fool. I won't be taken advantage of. But I won't be afraid. I'll do that in a healthy, respectful way. I will succeed. I will know what my goals are, and I will do them. I will do them in a way of compassion and sensitivity to those around me. I won't hurt anyone on the way. And then I will be a king. I will follow the King of Kings, and I will be a role model for the world of goodness and kindness. Thank you for watching. Again, if this is meaningful to you and this has value to you, first of all, you have to do this. It's not enough to hear it. You have to integrate it. Take some time, think about all these things on yourself, and then share this video with someone else, help someone else. Thank you.